going on, everybody? And welcome to the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast, doing a live edition here as we get ready for Week 19, where we are towards the end of July, about 9.5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, remaining in the season. And I'm joined by my colleague and extraordinary NFBC Player Hall of Famer, Mike Mager. Mike, what's up?
How's it going, Vlad? Good to be potting with you again. Yeah, going down the home stretch here, last 2 months.
Yeah, it's crazy. I say it every week. Maybe it's just fluff as I get my brain to focus on what we're going to talk about. But the season's just flowing by really quickly. If anyone you have questions as we go and you're watching this live on YouTube or on Twitter, on X, please go ahead, pop in a comment. We will try to answer them unless they are 20 league NL only keeper. So I don't think that's our area of expertise.
No, certainly not.
So we're on the precipice of the MLB trade deadline. That is going to occur on August the 3rd. So originally you and I discussed, maybe wait a week until we talk about it. But at that point, there'll probably be some trades. We'll be closer to the deadline. But it seems like, the stove is burning. All these interesting rumors, players that may or may not be traded. And I mean, how do we as fantasy analysts kind of sift through and remove the noise? Like, what do we think is actionable, and how can that work out for us, in the fantasy setting, right? Like outside of just the closers moving.
Yeah, it's really tough because I think a lot of teams are on the fence still in terms of whether they're going to be buyers or sellers. There's a lot of teams that are going to probably, get off the fence in the next week or two, but it's really going to depend on how well they do. I mean, there's only a few teams that are really definitively out of the playoff hunt. And so you have a bunch of teams that, 1 or 2 good weeks and they're in the wild card. So it's tough to tell. I think some of those teams may have legs and others really aren't going anywhere. But I think, you want to take a look at, it's really tough to predict. And usually it seems like a lot of years there's a lot more discussion and rumored trades than the actual trades that get done. But I would expect there to be, some starters moved. It's really tough to, kind of anticipate which ones. I think a lot of people will be looking at the Tigers, see if they are in fact going to sell, and if so, you would expect Skubal and Mize both to go, and that I think would solidify Montero in the rotation, as well as probably Drew Anderson, I guess. But other than that, maybe kind of looking at your teams and evaluating how susceptible your closers are to being moved or to being picked up. I mean, for instance, there's a lot of rumors now with Mason Miller, and I don't know that teams are going to fork over what probably would be an extraordinarily high price tag for him. But one of the teams that are rumored to be interested is the Yankees. So, if you have David Bednar, that's probably not good news or not something you want to hear. And so situations like that where maybe you have a closer who could be on the move to a team where he might not close. If you have a closer on a team that's kind of out of it, they may easily be sold, but to a contending team that wants that closer in the 7th or 8th inning. So those types of things I would be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the headliners, it really comes down to Tariq Skubal, which is something we've been talking about for quite some time. Everyone has, and then of course Mason Miller. The latest from Robert Murray, the update is that the Padres would need to be blown away by an offer to trade Mason Miller. I think there will be teams. I think blown away can be. We take that as face value, but we don't know what that exactly entails. And I would anticipate that there will be some teams like the Yankees that might offer something that they consider to be a blowaway offer, but the Padres may not. So I don't know. I don't know if Mason Miller is going to move. I do think that if they're available, Robert Suarez shares. By the way, is he still on the IL?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Yeah, Morahan. I see. Yeah, I love the main event market. They're just like always so ahead of things, right? Like I was looking like, yeah, Morahan picked up on a bunch of teams last week. Who was it? Kaiser Montero. He was legitimately, quote unquote, out of the rotation. He was the sixth man, and he was pitching bulk relief, pitched like 3 innings last week, and then hey, look, he was added on a bunch of teams, and he's starting and looking really good. I mean, he's got like a low threes ERA. He's a reason why perhaps they could make some deals, but yeah, those are kind of the big two, and then of course, pitchers like Kevin Gausman, Freddie Peralta. We know that the Mets are going to be big sellers, so there's a lot going on. Dalton Varsho as well could get a bump in value depending on where he lands.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to watch what the Blue Jays do. It's a kind of a strange situation where you have a team that was in the World Series, maybe just one play away from being world champions, and now they find themselves in last place in their division. And do they view this as a temporary thing where they're going to try to keep the core together and move, try to compete next year, or are certain guys going to be sold off like Gaussman and Varsho? I think Trevor Hoffman. I think they would hold on to Louis Varland, I guess, with his breakout, but that certainly makes Trevor Hoffman expendable. And we had a comment and Uncle Ted in the chat recommending him, and I agree.
He said, was it Brandon Valenzuela, Blue Jays best chip. Yeah, the Blue Jays, they're dead last in runs scored. And this is a team that was, like you said, an out away from winning the World Series. We've seen the World Series hangovers before, specifically with the Rangers. We did have a conversation in the preseason with you, also with Jason Anthony, about how, I don't know, there was just something about this Blue Jays team. We of course didn't know much about Kazuma Okamoto at the time, but is this really a competitive team in the AL East? Like everything just really seemed to gel for them last year, but then the Anthony Santander injury in the beginning of the year. Addison Barger hasn't been healthy at all, and otherwise it just seems like a lot of role players. Add in the fact that Vladimir Guerrero has just really, I think the average is up there, but everything else is down. If I'm not mistaken, I think he had like more stolen bases than home runs or something at one point. Pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he's been a major disappointment, and I think Kevin Gausman has taken a step back too this year.
Yeah, they're averaging 400. They're averaging around 4 runs per game, which is pretty much the lowest in baseball. 402 runs. The next worst team is Seattle, and I always just look at this because I'm always the things that I'm writing where I have to look these things up and just kind of remind me of the landscape of things. But it just blows me away. This point last Sunday, the Nationals and the Pirates were both tied for the most runs scored in the majors, and then the Nationals, I think they put up like 18 or something over the weekend in one game, and so now they're like 25 ahead of Pittsburgh. The Dodgers are third, then it's like the Cubs, Brewers, Braves, kind of all the teams you expect. But it's just crazy the landscape and how things change every year.
Oh yeah, and I'll add to that. I think at some point recently, I don't know where they are now, but I think the Twins were leading the AL in runs scored. And so just imagine us, in late March thinking we know everything as we sit down for our big drafts, being told that 3 of the top offenses in the league would be the Nationals, Pirates, and Twins. We would think that'd be crazy. Yeah.
7 of the 8 top offenses, as far as runs are concerned, are NL offenses. The AL has been pretty weak. I mean, the White Sox are second in runs, and they're 9th there. I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, the Rockies are producing runs. Thank you, Jake McCarthy. Do you have any Jake?
Yes, I have one Jake share. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I saw recently he's one of only 7 or 8 qualified hitters that's hitting 300 right now or above.
Yeah, that's a definite trend. We used to have a couple dozen guys hitting over 300 every year, but batting average continues to dip down. The league average, I haven't looked to see what it is, but usually somewhere in the 240s. The other thing I wanted to mention is, I'm always clamoring for, save a little face for me for my this year's Yelich, right? Like the guy that I kind of knew that if he could get hurt, and this is Luis Robert Jr., of course, knowing that if he stays healthy, probably would be great. A lot of bad things happened to the Mets. I don't know if they were already cursed, so it's not like Robert brought his injury curse to them. He just kind of exacerbated things there. But we know that he's a good hitter, and I was just looking at, and I know there are a bunch of teams, the Diamondbacks, or there are several teams that are interested in him. The Mets are definitely shopping him. But to me, we've talked about this before, the Philadelphia Phillies, their outfield is set up where they have a couple of lefties with lefty bats with very little experience in the outfield, Gabriel Rincones Jr. and Justin Crawford. So adding a big righty bat like him, I think would be epic, and he'd look good in that Philly uniform.
Yeah, no, he would. And I think I read an article recently about one of the hottest commodities at the trade deadline this year is right-handed bats, particularly with some power. And there aren't that many available. And it'd be almost surprising if Robert wasn't moved. I think it's all going to come down to what the return is and how much of his salary the Mets are willing to eat.
Yeah, there's a lot of there are a lot of benefits with somebody like that, especially who's been picked up off waivers recently, or somebody like Dalton Varsho, who's in like we know, a not so great offense this year, that might get traded to a team like the Phillies or the Brewers, and you're getting put into this improved offensive context where things like runs and RBI you just have a percentage chance for more of them. And this is maybe a guy that you're playing in 15-teamers, but on 12-teamers, like, should I be dropping him? Should I bench him? You don't know what to do. And then you get him over from Toronto to one of these, really deep playoff teams, and he's playing a lot. That just helps you. It helps make your decision. You're like, okay, now here's an outfield five I can play every week.
Yeah, no, some players definitely respond favorably to change of scenery, and both of those guys could be one. But sometimes it doesn't always work out. I mean, for years, I kind of thought Robert would be a lot better if he could just get out of Chicago, away from the White Sox, and he wound up going to the Mets, who were a strong team last year. So I thought he would be much better this year, but that didn't pan out.
Well, in his defense, not really in his defense because he can't stay healthy, but he was out for 2.5 months. Like, he had that stretch in the beginning of the year where he was pretty good. So, yeah, maybe that's not the right organization that can keep him healthy. So, I don't know. I shouldn't be back in next year, but maybe. Well, depends on the price, see what he does. Really quick question here from Joe, facing a roster crunch. Royce Lewis or Elliot Ramos eligible in daily roto for him?
Maybe a slight lean for Lewis with the positional flexibility. I think he's third base and first base, I guess, depending on what league what format you're playing.
Yeah, for me, it's how you feel. Are you feeling froggy? Do you want to kind of go for the high upside potential IL stint? Because we know Lewis kind of cranks them out in bunches. So I don't know what his potential trade status is, or if he's going to stay with the team. But
yeah, I think the context matters here. I think Lewis has the higher ceiling. I'd say Ramos has a considerably higher floor.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go Lewis. Let's go with Lewis there. Yordan Alvarez, we're on serious Triple Crown watch, and it's been several years since we've had a Triple Crown winner, and he's getting it done. He's doing exactly what we would expect a healthy Yordan Alvarez to do. Pretty impressive. Yeah,
I mean, I think the big thing with him is the health, the availability. He had, he missed most of last season, missed a large chunk of, I think it was 2023, where he missed about 50 games. But every year he's been healthy, he just rakes. I mean, it's so nice to have that combination of extreme power with a great average. And he's had a fantastic year, and he's doing it, in a lineup that I think otherwise is disappointed. So that just kind of makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, they have the skill, the talent. I mean, they are 10th or 11th in runs, and they're obviously in the mix for the playoffs. But yeah, just kind of you've got Altuve aging. I mean, aren't we all? But Cam Smith just I think he sat 3 games in a row. He just hasn't been able to materialize. He was somebody I thought after the All-Star break was going to get going. Paredes seems to me like hits a home run here and there, but is otherwise kind of quiet. And they just have these glut of random outfielders that always tease us to pick them up, right? Like it's Taylor Trammell week, it's Joey Lorpedo, it's Bryce Matthews, it's just all these bums. Hope they're not listening.
Yeah, no, their outfield has been ugly all season. They also, Pena missed a fair amount of time, and they lost Correa for the season. So that lineup could have been a lot stronger if things had worked out.
And then James Wood, just what an incredible season this guy is having. He leads the league in runs by like a 25% margin or something ridiculous over second place. Second place is Brian Reynolds, by the way.
I mean, this guy's, 28-15 in terms of homers and steals, but he's already got 94 runs. I mean, if the Nats have a, big weekend, he could be hitting 100 runs before August. That's pretty amazing. And he's hitting for a solid average, 270. This seems like, at least once a week, I'm like just turning on the games and there's James Wood hitting a leadoff home run. And since I have none, it's just really painful.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if the second half slide is in effect. He said he wasn't going to do the home run derby. We don't know for sure if that affects guys or anything. I don't think Jordan Walker. Maybe he's hit one home run since the All-Star break. But by the way, James Wood, since the All-Star break, it's only been 6 games, but he does not have a home run. And just 4 hits in 30 plate appearances. So he's hitting 148. And we remember he did this last year for a while. So we'll see. Lots of strikeouts too.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that I definitely put too much stock into was, his second half decline last year. I mean, he was striking out at a ridiculous rate, had a horrible second half. Actually, so did PCA. And look where they are now. So yeah, it could happen again. But whether, how much weight to put into it for next year is another thing.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of leads into the topic, one of the things we want to talk about. We'll discuss a little bit on, touch on standings and some of the races and things going on, maybe some more trade stuff later. But I just had an article come out on, basically, I took my guts guys, which were my player exposures for my teams, like just all the hitters, and I basically took stock or inventory because I did have, the article had listed, who I had the most exposure to, who I was targeting the most, who I was fading the most, and who I would have FOMO on. So like a Sal Stewart was an example of somebody that is, towards the end of the draft season, I was like, man, I really want to get me some Sal Stewart. And I just couldn't get him because the price kept going higher and higher. So yeah, a FOMO guy like that. Whereas like a Mookie Betts was another FOMO guy, but that one ends up being okay. Ends up kind of working out. So it's kind of want to run through position by position with you and just see some of the things we might glean for potentially for next season.
Okay, sounds good.
Catchers, for example, right? Like the value of the catcher, I'm wondering what it's going to be like because you go to the Fangraphs Player Rater, you go to Razzball Player Rater. I don't know if there are any other Player Raters out there, and you'll see it's loaded with catchers all the way through. And we understand part of this is because catchers do get a little bit of a sort of an artificial boost in this because of the scarcity. I do think that's something that player rater managers will, developers might edit, or even people that do these type of things at home or who create their own models might lower just a little bit. But you're looking at everybody there. It's like in the top 25 hitters, you got Ben Rice, you got Hunter Goodman, Drake Baldwin, William Contreras is just outside of it, Shea Langoliers, Dylan Dingler. Even if you were to do just like a flat, one across the board for all the hitters, they would all still be among the top 40, 45 hitters, I'm pretty sure. Liam Hicks I had mentioned as well. So, how the scarcity of relievers have been a thing for so long, and now we see top catchers getting pushed up. What's your feel of what the catcher pool might look like where these guys are going to be going in drafts next year? Like a Goodman, is he going to be a first-round pick potentially? Things like that.
Yeah, I have a tough time seeing him in the first round or any catcher in the first round, but I can see several catches going in the second and third round. It doesn't always work out. Look at Cal Raleigh this past year. He was the top second round catcher, and he's just had a horrible year. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the scarcity is, there's only so many very good catchers, but there's also a limited number of catchers who are everyday players or almost everyday players, whereas most catchers, maybe play 4 out of 7 or maybe 5 out of 7. You have some that play, 6 out of 7 or every day, and that's a real advantage. And I think, you could take a look and see what a difference the really good catchers make. And yeah, I think the player raters probably have to do a different type of adjustment. I mean, I think whatever adjustment they're doing is probably based more on, taking the 30th ranked catcher versus the 30th ranked at other positions. And I think the adjustment is needed there because the 30th ranked catcher is probably miles worse than the 30th ranked corner infielder or outfielder or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's probably a mistake now to be applying that same adjustment to every catcher, and that the top of the pool probably doesn't warrant as big of an adjustment as the bottom of the catcher pool.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is there are going to be, like, after you get past that first tier, who knows where Dylan Dingler is going to fall in that, but obviously Dylan Dongler, might as well call him at this point. The guy's just hitting bombs. Yeah. But after that, really that top tier, there's still a lot of goodness, right? Like somebody like William Contreras, who's having a very solid season. I mean, guy's got a 13.5% strikeout rate. He's hitting 275, always hitting for average. And home runs are light. He's got 10, but like somebody like that's going to fly under the radar. Ivan Herrera actually leads all catchers in games played and plate appearances. He's got 451 plate appearances. So love to see that he's staying healthy. He's stealing a few bases, underperforming a little bit with the batting average, but like the plate discipline is excellent. 60 plus runs scored. I believe that's second among all catchers. He's having a great season. He won't be cheap, but there are these like second or third tier guys that are going to be quite valuable and good targets. I mean, you can add Samuel Basayo to that list. You've got...
I don't think he's going to be a second or third tier guy.
He's one of those?
I think he'll be higher than that, but we'll see. And we'll see if my Yankees can pry Ryan Jeffers away. I put him in that stadium, in that lineup, and he's if he's a mid-round guy, that's pretty attractive, I think.
Yeah, we've been hearing about this potential deal for like a month now. Ryan Jeffers makes a perfect fit. Austin Wells isn't getting it done. By the way, what's the connection there with JC Escarra and John Hyman? Did you see his John Hyman's tweet the other day?
No, I didn't.
He said, what if you don't actually need to trade when you have what you possibly need sitting right under your nose? Not exactly word for word, with JC Escarra. So he was basically saying, like, give him an opportunity. So I don't know where that came from, but I'm sure there was some money under the table for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from either. I think they're going to aim a little higher for their primary catcher to make the push this year and for next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, because he's not like a fantasy analyst, right? He's not trying to get like plate appearances for his keeper league, right? There's obviously something that comes out of you see it comes out of left field, and from someone like that guy, you're like, okay, there's something here fishy, probably. Yeah. Carter Jensen, also one of those guys. He's been absolutely stellar, leading off for quite a while. He's got 14 bombs, 28% K rate, not all that great. Adley Rutschman, I feel like with his injuries and stuff is kind of. He's been flying under the radar. He'll probably be pretty cheap as well. And then Gabriel Moreno rarely stays healthy, but he's one of the catchers who can steal a few bases. And by the way, he's hitting 302, and I believe leads all catchers with a 391 OBP.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a good catcher for average, and he has shown a few very brief signs of power coming. Right? It could come late for him. I'm not saying 20, but maybe in the teens with some health. But there's a lot of strong catchers out there. But I think, people wanting a really strong catcher are going to have to be prepared to pay up next year. They're not going to be
Absolutely.
cheap.
Yeah. And
And
I'm sorry.
I think just one other thing is that with so many strong catchers, I think the gap between those guys and, the 30th catcher or the 25th through 30th catchers is even bigger. It's just, I don't think you want to get stuck at the very end of the catcher pool.
Yeah, and remember this past season, there were these group of outfielders that were they weren't your last case scenario, because I feel like the last case scenarios were Edward Caro, Carlos Narvaez, even a Harry Ford stash if you thought he was going to make the Nationals off the top. And those were the guys in late as your C2. But there was this group going like 200 to 300 ADP that have really failed. I mean, Ryan Jeffers was definitely on the way, but he was on the radar for most people. Like he was somebody that lots of sharps were targeting and getting. It was hard to get Ryan Jeffers. He started going up the board, but he obviously spent some time hurt. But the rest of these guys, like Logan O'Hoppe, I got fooled by the little bit of driveline thing, though he did hurt his wrist in April, so I think that impacted him a lot. Austin Wells, like arguably the worst hitter in baseball. So those guys. And Tyler Stevenson, this one is interesting because he's someone that his numbers, he's clearly underperformed, but he was one of those guys that if you looked at his barrel rate, bat speed, hard hit rate, EV, everything was high. It was above average, and especially above average for a catcher. And then he had a very big difference between his like average and XBA. It was like a 50-point difference when he was hitting under the Mendoza line. And now he's caught up to it. So now it's closer to, now he's hitting 244 on the season. He's hit like 330 over the last like 3 weeks or something like that. So obviously if you waited for Tyler Stevenson all this time, you probably missed out on like Dalton Rushing or whoever it is. But I think there's something to be said about, like at some point you kind of got to, hey, I got to cut the cord here on Austin Wells. I got to cut the cord here on Carlos Narvaez. And most of us did. I think a lot of us are better at making drops these days.
Yeah, no, Stevenson was pretty bad for most of the season. And, I think people look at him and he's a huge guy. You expect there to be more power, but he's never really hit for power consistently. And you look at him playing in Cincinnati, he's got, one of the best home parks in baseball. But he just wasn't taking advantage of it. And it's nice to see him, starting to step up a little bit. But I guess I'm still a little skeptical for a full year whether he's worth buying into.
Randy's asking, we all know that Ben Rice is losing that catcher eligibility. Where does he go in drafts next season? I think I have my answer.
I think I'd probably say round 2. I'm not sure he gets into the first round, but I think round 2. I mean, he's already over 30 home runs. I don't see any signs of him slowing down. It's a strong profile. I guess I'd say round 2. I'd be surprised if he gets, past maybe the begin. Maybe come March when all the pitching gets pushed up, he's one of the guys that kind of maybe falls into the early 3rd round. But I don't know. I think anything past that would be surprising to me.
I haven't looked at exactly who makes up that player pool early on. We'll probably have an episode like that at some point in early September. My first thought was at the round 1-2 turn in mains, because even though he loses that eligibility, he's going to be among the home run leaders. He's kind of taken he's been kind of doing what Aaron Judge is doing, maybe not to that degree, but he's just become really reliable, a fan favorite, and there's always the Yankees tax, right? We just have so many players in the NFBC world from the East Coast, New York based, and those guys always carry a little bit more. I know a lot of people probably would love, you get a Ben Rice in the early 2nd along with whoever you took for like a Scooble Rice or something like that. I mean, it'd be great. So he might go in that Caminero Kurtz like at the turn range. I think it's possible, but we still have to see with injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, he very well could be early 2nd, maybe even late 1st. A lot of the guys who were drafted in the 1st round this year, I think, are going to be taking a step back, and it's going to be spots to fill in round one.
Yeah, I mean the first base, the first base pool there this year. It's an interesting group. Um, it's a lot of those later round guys, like some of the targets that I liked. I know a lot of people did as well, but Jonathan Aranda and Wilson Contreras really stood out as a couple of guys going like after 150. With Contreras, it was like, can he stay healthy? And he's doing it. And he's a big part of that offense. But Jonathan Aranda just had the great all around skills, and a guy that seemed to have like maybe isn't going to hit 30 home runs, but just gives you a really strong floor and potential for profit. So, I mean, those guys have been excellent. It's basically Olsen has been the top earner at first base, and then it's a lot of those other guys like Sal Stewart's first base eligible. Jake Bauers is like a top 7 first baseman. It's a weird when you look at the player rater by first base to see who's been earning the value this year.
Yeah, no, there's definitely guys who were available late who've been right up there. Miguel Vargas is having a fantastic season. Every year, I think Yandy Diaz gets overlooked or underestimated, and he's not a late round guy, but he always seems to go later than I would have expected. Luis Garcia Jr., what a season he's had on the Nats. So yeah, it turned out that you really did not have to pay up one of the top priced first basemen this year, and may have been better off not doing so.
How far does Vladimir Guerrero Jr. fall at this point? I mean, is he somebody that might end up being like a bounce back steal? Like, is he going to fall to the third round? At what point do you consider someone like him?
I don't know. I mean, like, obviously I haven't prepared for next year, but my initial reaction is he's falling past round 3. My first thought is maybe like round 5, and maybe that's too far. Maybe part of it will depend on what the Blue Jays lineup looks like. But he had one strong power year. I think it was the year they played in Dunedin and Buffalo and whatever. But he's just never hit for that big power that you'd want from a first baseman. And I think he's kind of showing that, maybe the 300 average. I don't know. It doesn't seem like someone worth paying a very high price for. Not when there's so many other first basemen that look good. I mean, what's he going to finish with this year? Like right now, he's 6 homers, hitting 256. I don't know. It's coming off a 23 homer season. I don't know. I think 4th, 5th round. Maybe 5th is a little late. 4th round. I don't know. I don't see 3rd round.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I see 3rd round either. And we're talking about, Mike and I speak in 15 team language. So that's 46 to 60 overall. That sounds about right because think about Freddie Freeman last year. Freddie Freeman didn't necessarily have a bad year last year. We just know he's older, declining. This is still a guy that has been, for the last decade, like a top 3 fantasy producer year in, year out, almost never hurt. And he was going in the 60s and 70s in some drafts. He was going in the 5th round, right? So yeah, it's a very good point. And Freddie Freeman, he's retaining that value right now. He's not having like an outlandish, like crazy season, but 50 plus runs in RBI, 15 home runs, a few stolen bases, hitting 290, earning $17. It's not bad. There's value in those type of guys.
Oh yeah, and he's got the great lineup. You got other guys like Harper. He's having a decent season. He's tailed off, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of first basemen. I'm not, we very much tend to follow trends as a fantasy community, and there's a lot of recency bias. And after a year where there were so many late corners that have paid off very handsomely, I'm just not sure that there's going to be such a demand to roster Vlad.
Yeah, I agree. Second base position, so it's let's call it the Otto Lopez. That's what it is. He leads the
Yeah.
league in average and hits. He's been incredible. And so my plan, I remind me what your plan was before the season, but mine was I'm not going to take a top second baseman. Like I'll take Terang if it fits my build there. I thought he was worth the price. I wasn't really into Ketel or Jazz. And those are the three guys at the top. And then after that, it was maybe Nico Horner, hovering around 100, and then just a big drop off. And then you remember Matt McLean started surging because of his hot spring, and he's somebody I had a lot of shares of at that point, but I didn't get him on any of my big teams because at that point the price had gone from like 200 to 110, 120, and I didn't feel as comfortable. Despite being a McLeaniac, I don't know if I'm a true McLeaniac if I won't take him at 100. But I just couldn't do it. But so, anyways, I got lucky that I don't have him on a lot of my big teams. But he's hurting a lot of my DCs and my Gladiators.
Yeah, no, it's a tough position. I'm not sure that there's that many sure things. I mean, I think if I could go back in time, the guy I wish I had grabbed was Brandon Lowe. Just having a fantastic season for Pittsburgh. Yeah, I didn't have much McLean, but I also I did grab several shares of Nico Horner, and I've been kind of disappointed, very disappointed. I'm not sure. It'll be an interesting position. Next year, Tatis will be a second base eligible, and the power is going to be severely disappointing, but he's actually hitting for a decent average and running a lot. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Terang is fantastic. What a solid player.
He's great. Remember, he stole like 50 bases as a rookie, and then the next year he didn't run as much. Still like high 20s, low 30s, but just the power started to come. Bat speed increase. Like he's just a beast. I don't know what they do. Hey, we had John Posma on the show last week as a big Brewer fan, and we have a lot of Brewers friends. But just like what they do is just very special. I have lots of admiration for the Milwaukee Brewers, their front office, their trainers, pitching staff, coaches, everything. It's just a great organization.
Yeah, no, they're one of the lower payrolls, and every year they're a fantastic team.
The Luis Garcia thing is interesting to me. So he is the number 3 second baseman earner here through the season, even out earning Fernando Tatis Jr. And he's doing it in about 100 less plate appearances than most guys. And obviously the power has been amazing. He's hitting for average, he's doing everything. But he's making me question my little rule that I have during draft season. It's not super hard and fast, but for the most part, I'm not into infield platoon guys. So somebody like a Bryson Stott, somebody like Luis Garcia Jr. I essentially cross them off my board. If a guy's just not going to get the plate appearances against lefties as well, it's hard for me to roster someone like that and have to give myself an extra headache of moving somebody in and out of the lineup, making sure I have another good infielder, like mixing and matching. So I don't do that. But I mean, was it an oversight? What lesson, I guess, can I glean for this for next season?
Yeah, it's tough to say with Garcia. I mean, he's a really good player, but you're right. He is in a strong side platoon for the most part, does not get a lot of playing time against lefties, has never really excelled hitting lefties. I don't know. I mean, he's another player that's rumored to potentially be moved at the trade deadline. And maybe he goes into a position where he has more of a chance to play every day. But he also will probably be in a lineup that's not as good as what the Nationals are this year. So I don't know. I'm not sure yet how real this is. And he's running a lot less this year. So I mean, I think he's good average, and he's got pop. But if he's not going to run as much, maybe that detracts from his value. I don't know. One of the I think the lessons learned that I have for this year is I think a couple of times during draft season I paid up or was too aggressive on second base and third base for positional scarcity kind of type concerns, and it has not paid off for me. I got my Cal Garcia and Austin Riley shares littered about, and Nico Horner, and in both cases I would have been far better off just kind of waiting and taking the mid-round guy. I think so. That's one of my takeaways. I think second base will still probably be perceived as a weaker position than most next year, and I'm not going to jump a guy because of scarcity. I think I'll still be open to the top guys if they're priced fairly, but I don't think I'm going to be overly aggressive. Like I have to get one of the 3 top second basemen or one of the 4 or 5 top third basemen.
And the thing is, ADP is so heavily weighted on the previous season, and so you're going to see big shifts on, let's say, Mikhail Garcia, for example, or if Austin Riley, if he doesn't get it together. These are guys who are going to be going 150, 200, 220 overall, and that creates buying value because we know the profile of the player. We know that they had some history, at least with Garcia. It's injury based, but when ADP is being set, drafts are happening. These guys are getting discounted. There are other players being pushed up. There's also pitcher, closer scarcity, and all that. So you end up getting a lot of good deals. The question is, how many bounce back guys can you really sort of buy in on a single team? Does your team build have to have some of those risers balanced in with the bounce backs, or can you build a winning team with like just value bounce backs all throughout?
Yeah, I don't know. I tend to think it's probably more player specific. I don't think you can. I mean, there'll be players that bounce back. There is every year, but whether I don't think all or even a large percentage of the guys who have really struggled this year necessarily are going to bounce back. Austin Riley is going to be a real interesting case, I think, because he put together. I think it was like 3 years in a row of like 30 plus homers with strong averages, 270 plus type averages in a very good lineup, played every day when healthy, and just, seemed like a fantastic bounce back candidate. But then you kind of take a step back and he's just been awful this year. He had a good week last week, but he's been, truly awful. And a lot of his metrics have really been on like a 4 or 5 year decline. So, he's still not that old, but, how much faith do you want to put in a full bounce back? I'm not sure. I mean, it's tough to believe he could be this bad again next year, but how far he bounces back, I don't know. I'll have to dig into it, but I'm a little skeptical we see those prime years again.
Yeah, striking out a ton. We talked about him with John last week on the show. Talked about it with Jason. It's Riley. His quotes throughout the season, I think, get like a little bit more depressing as they go, or less confident. And just at this point, it's at the beginning it was like, oh, I just got to work on these things, and now it's like, well, I don't really know what's wrong. I hope I figure it out before the end of the year, right? So it's a big mental part of it as well, because we know he's capable. His power metrics aren't down all that much. His bat speed's kind of the same, or right in the same range, exit velocity, everything. So yeah, definitely a big mental part of it. Hope he figures it out. One more guy I wanted to mention in this area here, C.J. Abrams. C.J. Abrams. So you and I talked about him. I even think I texted you when I was on the clock. I was like, it was in the main event. I was like, or maybe it was, I forgot where it was, but it was like C.J. Abrams has fallen 2 rounds here. I'm not a C.J. Abrams guy, but this seems too good to be true. And at that point, when he fell, Zach Wheeler was there as well. And I really wanted Wheeler. So I took Wheeler, and then Abrams lasted another 8 picks. And so he ended up going like 92nd overall. What a deal he's been. The players drafted in between my Wheeler pick and that pick was Ryan Helsley, Pete Fairbanks, just a bunch of busts in that area. So Abrams, if you take away the catcher eligibility boost, he's basically the number 3 player in fantasy, and number 3 hitter, that is, behind his teammate James Wood, Yordan Alvarez, Triple Crown guy, and then C.J. Abrams. Like, he's just been insane.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. And you're right. I mean, I think when we got to the live events, he was one of the hitters who really fell as pitchers got moved up. And I remember one draft I was in, I think it was the ultimate, where he fell like much farther and he was like coming my way and I was getting excited. And I think my buddy Mike Masato beat me to him and snatched him up. But yeah, no, he's not going to have a great average. He'll strike out a lot, but he seems to have legit mid-20s power floor. He's still very young with high stolen base upside. That's put him in a good lineup, and the Nats have never been such a good lineup as they are this year. And you get a lot of counting stats.
This is a great case study and something I think a very big nugget to keep in mind for next year, because some of us sometimes we're looking for, like, how people do in fantasy football where it's like, oh, this new offensive coordinator, new schemes, things like that. Like, how does that impact the offense? We don't do that very much in baseball. If you remember a few years ago when the hitter guru went over to the San Francisco Giants and helped fix their offense, it was like 2021 when Brandon Crawford had that big season. We don't see things like that a lot, but there's a really good case study here with the Washington Nationals' new hitting coach, Matt Borgschult, and his team and what they've done there, where that's maybe something, these are the type of scenarios we want to look at to see who are the breakout offenses. Because imagine having just a little bit of insider intel that the Nationals are just going to crush this year. Like, I had no idea. Maybe I don't know. I was down in the closer RP2 well and just kind of missed this little bit of news to even look into who is this guy, what's his background, where he came from. But he's really transformed this team, and they're using a lot of analytics. They have a very set approach with their players where they're really focusing heavily on pitch selection, working on cutting down chase rate and swing rate, like just all these different things that this guy's making magic with this offense. And so we're kind of always looking for the next Mac Borgschult who will impact his team, and it's pretty hard to do, probably, right?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm just looking. So we talked about it earlier. Washington has the most runs scored in MLB. Last year, Washington was 20th in runs scored. Number 2 this year is the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I couldn't have predicted. Last year, Pittsburgh was dead last in runs scored. So Pittsburgh's gone from 30th to 2nd in runs scored. I mean, to me, that's amazing, and I don't know how you pick it, how you predict that. I mean, I imagine that the vast majority of us will, just due to recency bias, we'll try to, stock up on Nats hitters next year. But will they continue to perform like they are? Remains to be seen.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything we can do to pay attention to this in the preseason, and maybe you can build a team that way. Like, oh, this is like the up and coming hitting coach is using like this new process or whatever, and you can maybe build a team where you have more of those type of players, right? Because we just see it kind of so often.
Let me give you another example. Like last year, the Mets were stealing bases at will. I think Soto had like 40 stolen bases. They looked fantastic on the base paths, and then their running coach, I think he's the first base coach too, I think, and I apologize, I can't pull his name out of my head, but he went over to the Braves. So there was, I think some expectation, are the Braves going to run a lot more this year? And I just looked, Atlanta ranks 23rd in stolen bases this year. One stolen base ahead of the Mets at 24th. So, the Mets are not running anymore, but the Braves aren't running either. Obviously, injuries to Acuna hurt and stuff, but that's just one player. But I think it's really tough to, kind of think that a coach kind of changing teams is going to have a huge impact. It might. I think in some cases it's maybe it's beyond the single coach, but it's the team. have, I think I've learned to have a lot of faith in starting pitchers on the Brewers, and I kind of think Cleveland does a good job, Tampa Bay on, developing pitchers, and there are other teams too, but maybe that's the thing to be kind of more focused on.
And what's kind of messed up is we now live in this world with these prediction markets that I'm going on record I'm not a fan of, and because there's just so much insider trading, like there could be, not to give anyone ideas, but I guess it is kind of a bit of a cheat code if you're somebody that's very in tune to those markets, Polymarket, Kalshi, and you're seeing in the preseason like massive whale bets on, I don't know, certain teams or players, like they're probably putting those bets in that not just because they're feeling it, they're not going with their gut. They've got some intel. They know the assistant hitting coach or somebody in the team. So fortunately, those are little edges, right, that we may have to be paying attention to in the future.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have too many Emmanuel Class A situations.
Yeah. All right, let's before we just touch on FAAB next week for a little bit. Two players I wanted to ask you about in your anticipation of their value next year, where you may be on them. Connor Griffin is one. Obviously, he's hurt out for a while, but he had 20 stolen bases in less than 100 games. Looked really good as a 19 turning 20-year-old. And then Roman Anthony was a top prospect. Had this, Kyle Tucker-esque knee thing, both the finger and it's not healing. And then, where he might land next year. What do you think of those two?
I would easily take Griffin ahead of him. So I think Griffin is going to be still. I could see him being a second, third round pick, maybe. He hurt his hand. I think it was diving for a ball. I have any reason to believe that it's anything unusual, and that with healing he'll be back to full strength. Pittsburgh's got an improving team. He can run, a full season of him. I mean, he's still going to be what? He's 20 now. We haven't seen the best of him, and we won't see the best of him next year. But he's got very fantasy friendly tools, and it's not hard to envision a full season being a 20-40 type profile with a good average. So
25-50, baby.
Yeah, no, I mean he's fantastic. So, if you what would you pay for a 20-40 or 25-50 shortstop who's going to probably hit leadoff or second on a team? I think he's in discussion for a second round, honestly. And I don't think, at least I'm not aware of like an injury history that would scare me away from him just because he got hurt on a play.
No, but if we're going with a little bit of gut or intuition, and mine can be wrong, it's been wrong a lot, but a bit of the Mike Trout, there's already Mike Trout comparisons, but that Mike Trout vibe kind of has that build, that, stolen bases early in his career with power, but, maybe the stolen bases go down, the power comes up, but just plays hard, maybe the Bryce Harper type, and that just can kind of put himself, that extra grit and effort can maybe expose himself to more injuries. I don't know. We don't have Dr. Dave on call right now. I couldn't tell you, but it's just the vibe I get, which is possible for someone like him.
I suppose. I mean, if I'll take Trout's second year stats for Griffin next year. I'm more skeptical on Roman Anthony. I think he was going kind of fifth round this year, and I thought he was being overdrafted. I got a lot wrong this year, but I fading him was the right call. It looks like. I'm not sure what's going on with him. He's been out a really long time, and
Finger's not healing.
Yeah, I mean it's like Will Smith's neck. It's like I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's something we're not hearing about. Yeah, I don't know, but I think he's got a less fantasy friendly profile. Like I didn't see anything from him that makes me think that he's, on the verge of being a big 30 home run hitter. I mean, still, it's a lot of ground balls. I didn't see him running this year. I could be, misremembering, but No, I mean, he hardly played really. So in fairness to him, we really haven't seen much. But, 30 games, 1 homer, 2 steals, 229 average.
I lost you there for a second, Mike. And if you can still hear me, I guess it gives me an opportunity to say something here. But uh, it, if you faded Roman Anthony and it worked out because he got hurt, in my opinion, it's like I don't. That's the one thing is I don't know if we know what he would have been like. Based on like a 30 game sample, we don't know like what that could have turned into. So I don't know. It's we got Mike frozen. Let's hopefully get him back here. Mike, come back to the stage when you can. All right. As we get Mike back, hopefully Mike will pop back in here. We're going to look at some of the free agent options for next year and look at next week's schedules. So, in my opinion, the way it lines up for next week, it's a very hefty hitting schedule. You get a lot more teams on 7 game weeks. You got a lot of teams. In fact, 15 of the 30 major league teams have 7 games next week. A lot of really nice matchups are lining up. And you've got only the Rockies. I believe the Rockies are the only team playing 5 games next week. So looking at the schedules, the first thing that stands out to me, the Athletics. They are at home all week. They're going to play Boston, which should be a fun series. Boston for 4 games, and they're going to face the Tigers for 3. They're going to have potentially up to 4 lefties that they're going to face. The A's are going to have to face. So that impacts somebody like a Lawrence Butler, right? So somebody like Lawrence Butler, probably not the best streamer for next week. Maybe somebody like Carlos Cortez, if you got in a 15-teamer, you can drop him. Same with Jeff McNeil. They are strong side platoon guys that may not play a lot next week. As for Good, that something might work out for if they do in fact end up getting four lefties on the slate. Maybe Max Muncy, for example. Max Muncy, the A's. He was called back up when the unfortunate injury happened to Joshua Kuroda Grauer, the ruptured testicle, unfortunately. So Kuroda Grauer is out. Max Muncy was called back up. He had a really nice, strong month of April. Muncy could play more, I think, than some of the other split guys. Colby Thomas is somebody that is interesting, but more so somebody that you would play like if you have him in a DC lineup and you have a bunch of injured guys, because Colby Thomas, for example, in that Boston series, if they face 2 lefties and 2 righties, Colby Thomas is only going to play 2 of those games. And you might have somebody, an alternative, a player that you have 3 games. So you have to weigh the 2 games from Colby Thomas in Sacramento. It's going to be really hot against someone else that might have 3 games, maybe in not good of matchups. One of the things I've been doing is kind of leaning in. It's been working out more so than not for those games in Coors, in Cincinnati, in Sacramento, Sutter Health Park. When you have a hitter that hits higher in the lineup, like a Colby Thomas, he'll hit 4th or 5th in the lineup and face not so great pitching and works out more so than not. Jonah Heim is another guy that I would consider playing. And then I hope Mike gets back here. I want to talk about Tommy White because Tommy Tanks is off to a nice start to his major league career. I think he had a 3-hit game or a 4-hit game in one of his first 2 games. I did pick him up in both my main events. It wasn't particularly intentional. I think, I had him as my top bid in a couple places, but I thought he was going to go for 20, 30 plus. And, maybe people thinking that Zach Geloff would be back and then Tommy Tanks would get demoted, or maybe Nick Kurtz is on the way back, Tommy Tanks would get demoted. But instead, Tommy Tanks is playing, and he's been an everyday guy so far this year. I think he's somebody that's going to be an interesting target for people in FAAB this coming weekend. So there's the A's. They're going to get Boston for 4, Detroit for 3, and the one tricky part is when your nice ballpark environment is boosted, but it's sometimes thwarted by the pitchers that you're facing. In the case here with Boston, their lefties are good. It's not the same as getting the Rockies lefties, right? You're getting some good pitching, so there's a little bit of I guess sort of pushback, rosterbation, if you will, making those type of decisions. But for the most part, I think if you're full week leagues, you can play some of those short side platoon A's, and in deeper leagues as well. Just make sure sit Lawrence Butler. Boston Red Sox, they are going to play 7 games as well, of course, as on the flip side of that. So they're going to play 4 games in Sacramento and 3 games at Dodger Stadium. They just had their 15-game streak halted. 15 games there, tying their franchise record. And then in the second game of the doubleheader there, Kyle Bradish put that to an end. So Kyle Bradish, nice start there. But Boston now has to start a new winning streak, hopefully. And it's another scenario here where the Boston in that series against the A's, and the A's have a couple of lefties, the Red Sox are probably going to have to face 2 left-handed A's pitchers and 2 right-handed A's pitchers. And that sometimes is not, it's not a great scenario for somebody if you need to stream somebody on your D seam like a Romy Gonzalez, right? Because you're probably only getting the 2 games. Romy Gonzalez being short side platoon bat. He's going to play 2 of 4. Again, another tough decision you might have against somebody that has 3 games in a half week. Anthony Siegler has been leading off for the most part against both lefties and righties. I think he sat against a lefty once the other day. They don't have a true leadoff man. Anthony Siegler is 78% rostered in main events, so 22% the field is going to be picking him up for this week that they have. And then Yoshida, he's been looking really good, big part of the lineup, mostly playing against on the strong side of the platoon. He's UT only. He's available in 70% of leagues, and for the deep streamers, we'd be looking at like a Jahmai Jones, former Detroit Tiger, who is now on the Red Sox. We'll wait for Mike here, and we'll bring him back in a second as soon as we get him up on the stage. Next team is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Pirates. They're going to play 7 games, 3 at home against the Diamondbacks and 4 at Cincinnati. The Pittsburgh Pirates, like we were telling you earlier, second in run production this year. Unlike Borgschult with Washington, their hitting coach has been with them for a couple of years, Matt Haig. So Pittsburgh Pirates, they're expecting Spencer Horwitz to be back. Spencer Horwitz, let me see. Mike says he's backstage. I don't see. Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, just don't turn on your camera if you can. For all the viewers at home. Yeah. That's okay.
I'm sorry. I must have. I had a blackout and had trouble getting power back on, and had to reboot my computer. And of course, it took way too long. And now I seem to be having an issue with my camera, and I don't know why.
That's okay. Most people will be listening to us. No, all good. Most people will be listening to us in podcast over the weekend. No, I was just talking about some of the schedules and there you go. Hey,
sorry about that.
We were talking about the A's, how they may face up to 4 lefties, so somebody like a Lawrence Butler isn't ideal. But Tommy White has been looking pretty good. He was really, I got him on both my mains because I guess people just weren't into him, thought he was going to get demoted when Geloff comes back. But he's been looking good. He might stick around, and with 7 games at home, he seems to me like a potential target.
Yeah, no, it lines up good for him next week. He's been better than expected. It seems like that was a good pickup of yours.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Do you see him sticking in terms of playing time when guys start coming back, or?
It's tough. I wanted to see how many options, like minor league options, Max Muncy has, right? Because he's already been sent down a couple times. Max Muncy had a good start to the season. And then he hasn't been that bad to the point that he would have been demoted. But I had mentioned Joshua Kuroda Grauer's unfortunate, testicular rupture. Uh,
Painful.
that guy he was playing balls out, man. He was playing incredibly.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of shares of him that I think I'm going to have to say goodbye to on Sunday, and it hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. Not as much as it hurts for him.
No, certainly not.
Max Muncy's got two minor league options remaining, and he's kind of a short side platoon guy. They DH'd him against the lefty, and then he didn't play against the righty on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Tommy White has been hitting sixth and fifth over the last couple of games. He's played first and third, and he's played against lefties and righties. So that to me seems like a sign of Tommy White over Muncy.
Yeah, I think so. They still got some guys injured though, right? Like I guess I
Gallup's
don't
coming
know
back.
when Kurtz, Geloff, and Geloff are coming back, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean near term he looks good.
Boston, I just mentioned there isn't a lot to grab there, but that 4-game series, they might have to face two lefties and two righties. And I was talking about how sometimes that's tough. Like if you have no choice for an outfielder or middle infielder in your DC, you got to play Romy Gonzalez for two in Sacramento. That's not a bad option. But a lot of times that may not be the best type of streamer like him or a Jahmai Jones for just 2 games in Sacramento. It depends, right? It's all case dependent.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the right idea trying to get guys going, who are going to be playing games in Sacramento, but I don't know. I think sometimes when you force it and it's only a couple of games, I think maybe you're better off with the better player plus volume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what Tyler O'Neill had the 3 games against lefties coming off like 3 home run weekend, and of course, I mean he actually produced, but he just didn't hit any home runs.
Right.
It doesn't always work out. Pittsburgh, the Pirates, they're going to get 7 games, 3 at home against the Diamondbacks. Some of their pitching has been better lately. Merrill Kelly has stepped it back up. Brandon Pfaadt's been looking good, although I think that's going to kind of flip the other way very soon here. And then they get 4 at Cincinnati, and of course, it's not always great when you're facing guys like Hunter Green and Chase Burns. If you run into Rhett Lauder, hey, that's a good thing. But Spencer Horwitz is coming back. He's available in 30% of mains. Jacob Gonzalez is available in 17% of mains. He's been a nice addition to them. He's been playing well. And then Jared Triolo, he's been somewhat fantasy worthy here. He's available in almost all mains.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good matchup. I mean, even though some of the Diamondback starters are pitching better, that's a awful bullpen. So once you get into that bullpen, you could really do some damage. Same with Cincinnati, and then you get one of the best parks to play at. So yeah, no, I think it's a very good week lining up for Pirates hitters.
And then the Royals, they're only playing 6 games, but it's an interesting mix because they're going to get 3. They're facing mostly right-handers, and they do have some platoon guys there. But 3 at Minnesota, and then 3 at Colorado, and no Bobby Witt Jr. How much does that impact them? Some move guys up. Like, is there anyone in that roster you would be looking at for a 15 streamer for a 6-game week with Coors?
I don't think so. I think most of the guys worth playing there are probably already rostered. Maybe I think they got a couple of righties that they're going to face in Colorado. I guess Michael Massey is one guy that maybe could be worth picking up, but I'm talking about $1 bids if you have a free roster spot that you're churning. Like I wouldn't drop anyone good, and I wouldn't pass up, on a longer term play just to get one of these fringe Royals for 3 games at Coors.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, I don't know. Anyone else stand out to you? As soon as we're off and I post this pod, I'm diving into my spreadsheets and my work for FAAB, so I'm going to get an early start here. But I haven't gone through the whole list. I just kind of looked at things from a matchups perspective, and I haven't really looked at the pitchers. So, is there anything glaring, like anyone major, either 15 or 12 teamers that you think is going to be a big target for people this week?
I don't know about target, but the one thing I noticed for next week is I think the Rockies are the only team with 5 games, and
Yeah.
so in the first half of the week, they only have 2 games, and it's at San Diego. So I guess I'd say, if you're someone who's starting a Rocky hitter on a kind of a regular basis, the first half of next week, you might want to make sure you have an alternative. Otherwise, 2 games on the road at San Diego is not, um, you might want to sit some guys that you're otherwise have been starting regularly.
Yeah, unless his name is Hunter Goodman, of course. Then you're just,
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be sitting him anywhere.
yeah. And then what was I going to say? By the way, over the last 30 days, you wouldn't even believe the RBI leaders over the last 30 days. Can you guess who's first right now? What if I told you he never played before this season?
Wow, no.
And he's a Pirate.
Pirate who never
Who's a rookie.
played before this season.
No looksies.
Oh, I was looking. I'm just drawing. Oh, as Merlin.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
29 over his last 24 games.
Wow. He's been amazing. Wow, what power. When he hits it, it flies. That's a really interesting piece they've added to like a lineup that was already doing really well. He's going to be interesting to watch if he can keep this up, because to stick a big bat like that right in the middle of their lineup, he's pretty impressive so far.
If I was running the Pirates, I would. I made a joke about this. I think it was actually kind of dumb because most of mine are. But it was like, maybe the Pirates feel like a team of destiny. They really just need some playoff experience. Some guys like maybe just try to trade for Kike and Trinan from the Dodgers for this Valdez kid. Whatever. Just give it. Just trade him off. Anyways, that was a dumb joke. But what I really think what they need, I mean, of course, like a playoff experienced guy would be good. Somebody like Kike there would be great. You get him just to be a cheerleader in your dugout. But the Dodgers will never let that happen. They won't give him up. They need bullpen help big time if they want to compete. But what I really think they need to do, I think they need to get Mitch Keller's bad roto juju off the team. They need to find a buyer for Mitch Keller, turn that into a reliever, and then they'll be in good place.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure who they can get, but if they can somehow pry like Luke Weaver away from the Mets, something it'd be an immediate upgrade to their bullpen. And in the playoffs, if you got Skeens, maybe Ashcraft, Jared Jones as a 1-2-3, that's a pretty good starting rotation. And if as Merlin Valdez keeps it up, it's really not a bad lineup at all. Well, obviously they're not. They're second in the league in scoring, so it's a. I just, I kind of feel bad for Pirates fans, and with the ownership situation. I mean, I remember when I'm a big fan of Andrew McCutchen. I just loved watching him play. I think he's an awesome person, and I remember those teams in the mid 2010s. They had him, Starling Marte, and Gregory Polanco, and they had some really good pitching, and they just needed, like a couple of players that I thought would have helped them really get over the hump, and they never invested in free agents despite having really good attendance. And then what was the story that came out like a day or two ago? Didn't the owner say something like they can be really aggressive at the trade deadline as long as they don't increase payroll or something like that? Maybe it was the GM who said it, but it's it's like, how are you going to be aggressive at the trade deadline without adding payroll? How aggressive is that? So
No,
I don't know. I think they have a team with potential, and I'd love to see them kind of go for it a little bit.
Yeah, they're scrappy. You think back to the preseason where we were talking about this, like these ads, like Brandon Lau, Jake Mangum, Ryan O'Hearn. They're not big fantasy ads, or well, they have been actually. They actually been worth it fantasy wise, but didn't seem like it moved the needle. It just kind of felt like it just helped the team in general. And then my thought was, because I was big on Connor Griffin this year, that he was really going to develop right away, help them explode. By the way, Connor Griffin will be back he should be back like before the playoffs. I really like the makeup of this team. Like I really think they're going to make some. I think they're going to get into the playoffs. I think they're going to make some noise. You got these scrappy guys like Nick Gonzalez, and they just added Jacob Gonzalez, a very talented kid. They got Valdez, Brian Reynolds, among the staff. Like this is a pretty interesting team. I like them a lot. The big problem here, even Bubba Chandler, by the way, coming off a gem against your Yankees, which was impressive. Yep. The big problem here is the bullpen. The bullpen is going to do them in. They need to make significant moves there. Your top two closer, or sort of closer committee, are two lefties. Your two big lefties. The righties are completely tanked. Dennis Santana is just horrendous. Yep. Really shouldn't even be pitching there. And it's weak. It's dry. So they need to make some big moves and get a big guy. And it's not like Fairbanks. You don't need Fairbanks. Fairbanks is going to make things probably worse for you.
No. You wonder if they'll move Keller into the bullpen for the playoffs. I don't know. I think my sense is that the most desired commodities at the trade deadline is bullpen help. It just seems like every team that has playoff aspirations or postseason, championship aspirations wants to add to their bullpen, and there's only so many guys available. So I just think to myself, what makes me think that the Pirates are going to outbid other teams to get a really helpful bullpen piece? That's where my pessimism comes in. I would love to see it, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen.
I feel like they'll get bullpen pieces, but they're not going to be necessarily, like you said, like dynamic bullpen pieces. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Last thing, I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on, but my last thing here is the return of Brian De La Cruz, one of the worst hitters. Yeah, what'd you say? He's bad? Yeah, he's bad. But guess what Brian De La Cruz did in his first game? Okay,
he homered.
The Phillies. He homered. What's he probably going to do this weekend, just to make some people drive up their FAAB spend? Not that we have a lot of money left. Probably homer some more, and then probably get demoted.
Yeah, I would urge caution for folks who may want to be investing in him. So I guess I'll note he homered in his first game, but he got the start upon being promoted back from AAA against a lefty. And I am skeptical that he's going to get many starts against righties. So he's likely a small, short side platoon guy. So I don't know that I'd be interested in him.
Yeah, thank you. Now I get that little extra level of analysis, and I'm looking at Philly's schedule next week. Most likely, they're not going to play any lefties, so great. Everyone's safe. I almost wish they had a bunch of lefties so people would Brian De La Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that maybe makes you kind of hold out a glimmer of hope for him or someone else is that the outfield, other than Brandon Marsh, is so bad that any type of consistent performer can gain playing time. I mean, it's not like Rincones or Crawford have playing time locked up if someone gets hot. So never know.
Yeah, never know. And then maybe the righty bat to get is Luis Robert Jr. We'll see. Uncle Ted earlier was saying, he told us, I think he typed it 7 times, that Luis Robert Jr. is made to be a Brewer. I don't know. I don't know if they want that juju on the team.
I don't see that happening. I don't know. It's not a team that typically spends a lot at the trade deadline either.
Yeah, it depends on how the salary, like he was taking that responsibility. That's not something the Brewers are going to want to do.
It doesn't feel like a Brewers type move. And I don't think they need to do too much right now. I mean, but they have the second best record in baseball. Game, they're half a game behind the Dodgers. So it's not just that they're in first place; they're one of the best teams in baseball as is.
Yep. Yes, they are. And I'm scared of them. in the playoffs. They're going to be good. The pitching staff is great. Logan Henderson is a dream. And this is I love this. I love the pitching staff. It's sad that they don't have Brandon Woodruff anymore. Let's end with this. I'll kind of load it up to give you a second to think about it. Just a random out there trade that you think might happen. Maybe even if it doesn't make sense. But I was going to say that I think I just for whatever I see it, and I know maybe not even make sense roster wise, but I see Casey Schmidt being on the Yankees. I know he's linked to other teams. I know position wise, like he could fit in. It's not like that type of necessity. I think the Phillies have been scouting him, the Mariners too. I don't know why, but Casey Schmidt is one of those guys where, as I'm writing articles, doing work and things, I really dug into like more deeper into him. Like, who is Casey Schmidt? Where did he come from? Like, we haven't really seen him much. Where did this breakout come from? To me, it turns out he was always a good hitter. Like, always elite in high school, whatever, and then in college, in the minors, he was really good. Always hit for like a little bit extra power. He was a second-round draft pick, so he wasn't like nobody. He just never really got the playing time in San Francisco. Power metrics have always been like at or a little bit above average. So I don't know if this is getting you interested, but
yeah, no, I mean, he would definitely be helpful on the Yankees, and I can see them, maybe wanting to upgrade at third base. Ryan McMahon, Ahmed Rosario. Maybe that's not what they want to go into the playoffs with, but I don't know. Some of the names thrown around, I just question like what's the Giants' motivation? I mean, I guess. Yeah, he, maybe they could sell when he's high and get a good return. But he's also, I'm just looking now. He's 27 years old. He's making less than $1 million this year. He's under team control for 2030. If they believe in him, that's one of the guys they keep. I would think. Unless you got to include him in a deal to try to unload, Devers' salary or something like that. But otherwise, like I saw a rumor, would the Angels be trying to deal Zach Neto? I'm thinking, why? He's what is he like 27 years old? He's still under team control for 3 or 4 years. He's not making a ton of money. Like, isn't that the type of player you want to keep and try to build around in the future? So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Reed Detmers, Soriano, and Neto have all been on the trade block. And they've got new, they clean house with Perry Manassian, who's just, it's a good move for them. It's a,
yeah, I think they got clean house one level above him.
Indeed, they do. Do you have a player like that? Just somebody off the cuff, may or may not make sense. Just somebody you say, this guy, everyone thinks he's going here, but he's going to be traded here. And off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, no.
Make your gut vision.
No, it doesn't. I don't have that type of insight into teams that like guys likely to be traded. To be honest, I would be surprised if the Phillies don't add an outfielder. I think that's, I think this is a team that's built to win now. It's a lot of veterans. Wheeler's in the mid-30s. Harper's, maybe like 33, 34, getting up there. Trey Turner's in his 30s. Like this strikes me as a win now team. And Dombrowski always wants to, he's a near-term guy, wants to try to win, go for titles. And, in the playoffs, they got, Sanchez, Wheeler, and Luzardo as a 1-2-3 that competes with anybody.
Yeah.
Johan Duran is fantastic. It's a little less fantastic behind him, but this could be a real contender despite having maybe a somewhat disappointing regular season. But that outfield needs fixing. So that'd be one kind of. I don't have a particular player in mind, but if teams are looking to kind of unload a veteran outfielder with some skills just because they're out of it and don't want to spend some money. I could see, it was when the Braves won the World Series. I forgot they picked up like three outfielders at the trade deadline. None of whom were super highly regarded. But I think one of them was Soler, and I think he won like the World Series MVP maybe, or maybe I'm thinking of someone else. But like, that kind of move where you add a couple of veteran bats in the outfield, I could see the Phillies doing that.
When was that? That was 2021. Yeah, you're right. It was Soler won the MVP, the World Series MVP that year.
Yeah, and I think they added like two or three outfielders at the trade deadline that year. I don't remember who, but that's the type of move I could see the Phillies do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I already mentioned Robert, maybe a Dalton Varsho, lots of other outfielders out there. So maybe grab a couple of them.
Yeah, Varsho, I mean, would be another power bat, although they probably could use a righty power bat more than a left-handed bat,
Yeah.
but still, it would be a big bat to lengthen their lineup, and it would improve their defense because Varsho's a really good fielder. So yeah, I could see that. I just don't think they have a ton of prospect capital to spend. So I think they're probably going to be more looking at salary dumps
Yep.
than teams looking to trade old for young.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, there'll be one blockbuster, something out of left field. Always is the case. So it's going to be fun. It's a very fun time now to speculate, and especially in FAAB this weekend, right? If we think Mason Miller has a shot at being traded, then check out Suarez's history, or I'm sorry, when he might be back, or Adrian Morejon, or what's up with Joe Adam and those guys. Jason.
Yep. No, this is the week to do those low dollar speculative bids.
And if you haven't yet, go check out Mike's article this week at FTN, FTNFantasy.com. It's about how to, it's some really tricky, I guess, very sneaky bidding techniques that a lot of people don't know about in FAAB. So make sure to give that a read. Any final words for the people here? And we're doing the show live, and we'll sign off here.
No, I'll just say keep grinding. There's a lot of water under the bridge, but there's still a full 2 months of baseball. Lots going to happen. Some guys are really going to step up big, and others are going to fall off a cliff. So a lot can happen. There's still a lot of room for movement, and keep grinding.
Keep grinding. Stay vigilant. Keep monitoring.
Yes.
On behalf of Mike Mager, I'm Vlad Sedler. This is the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast Live Edition, and we'll talk to you next week.